fellow Patriots. Welcome back to another episode of Patriots of the American Republic. In our last episode, we covered Tucker Carlson and his apparent anti-Jew and anti-Israeli sentiment. I know in these current times, specifically when it comes to the left, they like to label everyone that doesn't agree with them as a racist. And in some cases, the right tends to do the same thing. Any criticism of either Jews or Israel tends to get labeled as anti-Semitic. Now, I can't 100% say Tucker's anti-Semitic because I haven't openly heard him saying that he hates Jews or wished bad on them. But for today's focus person, we will look at a similar individual and try to determine if this person is anti-Semitic or not. But I can assure you that at the very least, they are on the same spectrum as Tucker Carlson. As mentioned before, the person that I want to talk about is Candace Owens. Now, I remember Candace Owens starting out making videos from her own kitchen, making some really great political points and destroying leftist narratives. Her points were clear, articulate, and passionately on fire. And they made her a strong voice for the conservative movement during a moment where, many minorities, specifically within the Black community, wouldn't dare speak up against the Democratic propaganda machine. She was quickly snatched up by the organization of TPUSA and joined Charlie Kirk on the road and, was part of his inner circle as they went out to different venues, interacting and debating people, as they traveled. From there, she was picked up by PragerU, where she, started her own show and made some informative video segments for, Dennis Prager's channel. From there, she leaves PragerU on good terms and heads on over to Daily Wire, where things started out really good, but eventually led to her being dismissed. And since then, she went completely independent. And she's had a very, very large social media following. She's actually gotten bigger. So just to be clear, Candace was pro-Israel, as she obviously had good relationships with Dennis Prager and Ben Shapiro, who are both Jews. But then there was a fallout that took place between Candace and Ben, and a lot of it had to do with her criticisms towards Israel. Now, at the time, I did do a video, and even though I was on Ben's side, because I'm pro-Israel, I don't think that silencing Candace was the right thing to do. However, I do understand it's no different. Like if I had somebody on this channel and they were constantly being anti-American, I'd be like, well, what are you doing on my channel? That's not how it goes, right? So I can kind of understand. It's a complex situation. But anyhow, that was the buzz through social media for a number of weeks, heck, even for a number of months, when it all broke down just a few years back. Now, like I said, we did touch slightly on it back then, but I didn't really go into depth about it because it was just petty stuff. And to be honest with you, it didn't really impact me, so I really didn't want to get into it. I just glanced over it, right? But however, at that time, it was rumored, like I said, that Candace had begun to criticize Israel, which again, obviously Ben Shapiro, being Jewish, didn't like. And I do believe that ended up contributing to her dismissal. And I don't think it was just straight up criticism. It was just, there were certain things, and we're going to get into it, right? But 3 years later, and I'm still really unclear as to the specific details of what happened. And to be honest with you, I just haven't taken the time to honestly go through it. But one thing is really, really clear is that since then, Candace has become very, very anti-Israel and very anti-Jewish. And in my eyes, she may have crossed into that anti-Semitic spectrum. And we'll go over some of those details and we'll kind of determine whether if she is or she isn't. You guys obviously make up your own minds and determine if she is or she isn't, but we'll go over these examples. Now, before we get started, I need to make this statement very, very clear. As I've stated previously with other topics, there is good and bad in everything, everywhere, and everyone. Just like we have good Americans, we have bad Americans. Just like there are good Jews, there are bad Jews. Now, being Jewish person doesn't automatically make you good, nor does being a bad Jew make the entire Jewish lineage bad. And I think Candace should know better because as a Black person, Black people have been generalized by many people, by being a bad race. right? They get generalized. And she's a perfect example that there are good blacks and there are bad blacks. And well, there's an example that she's a good black, right? And those types of generalizations aren't good. So I think Candace needs to be very, very specific. Everybody needs to be very specific and really refrain from using generalizations because, again, there's good and bad in everybody. Now, in addition to that, I also want to be fair to Candace because not every anti-Semitic accusation fits, right? Just like the left does with the racist label, many people are doing the same thing with the anti-Semitic label. And there are times where the label doesn't fit. And to be honest with you, it does take away from actual anti-Semitic examples, right? It's no different than when a woman cries rape falsely, right? It takes away from actual rape victims, right? So I think we need to be very, very careful here. Now, one of the earliest claims of Candace Owens being anti-Semitic was during an event along with Charlie Kirk, and she was asked a question about nationalism. And she provided an example of nationalism within her explanation. Let's take a look at the first video.
Yeah, I agree. I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. But if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German, everybody to look a different way. That's not, to me, that's not nationalism.
Now, when doing research for this video, a few videos and articles linked to this being her first, or at least one of the first times that she was deemed anti-Semitic, right? But to be quite frank, I don't really get that from this video. Now, I'm seeing her giving a statement based on Hitler's perspective. He wanted to make Germany great. Not that she's saying, well, he wanted to make, Germany great, and that's fine. I mean, that's what his perspective was. That's not her perspective, right? So I can very easily see how this could be taken out of context, which more than likely was. Now, another possible false accusation of anti-Semitism was when she said Christ was king in a tweet back at Ben Shapiro. And it was, again, during that time where they were just at odds with one another. Some took this to be a dig at Jews that don't believe in Jesus as their Messiah, but the claim falls really short, and it's a smokescreen tactic because at the end of the day, Jesus was born a Jew. He lived as a Jew, and he died as a Jew. According to the Bible, Jesus was born Jew, therefore saying Christ is king cannot be anti-Semitic. He is a Jew. Now, you can make the argument that it's anti-Jewish, but, that would be number one on how you take it. You're interpreting that statement, right? Because as Christians, we do believe that Christ is king. So by believing that he is, that's not anti-Semitic. Furthermore, Jesus still remains a Jew, right? So the claim of anti-Jewish, of Christ as king being anti-Jewish, doesn't fit there either. It falls really short on its claim. But let's take a listen.
When I did this, by the way, the priest who baptized me said, Christians won't accept you. You'll still be a Jew. And I said, well, I am. That's my race. I'm a Jew. I'm proud of my race. It's a great race. It's done many, many great things, including write the Bible. And, I am a Jew. But that hasn't happened at all. Christians have welcomed me with open arms, except this Christ the King, anti-Semitic crowd. Christ is the king, and one day every knee will bow and recognize it because he's not just my king, he's king of the universe. But when you use that phrase to mean that God has abandoned his chosen people, the Jews, through whom he came into this world incarnate, and that he's broken his promises, his covenant with the Jews, you are quoting scripture like Satan does in the Bible. You are quoting scripture to your purposes, and that to me is specifically wicked.
Now, before we get into additional examples, let's touch on the fact that Candace seems to blame a lot on Israel, similar to Tucker. Before we get into the never-ending blame game, when someone has a bias towards someone or something, they will always lean towards wrongdoing as a matter to justify their position, right? So in the following video, Candace will get some details very, very wrong, and I can personally attest to it, regarding Israel. Let's take a look.
When people call it, this bastion of freedom, or it's just like America, it's not the sense that I had when I was there. And again, we had talked earlier on about how our own experiences obviously color our opinions. And I grew up, at my grandparents' house. My grandfather grew up in a segregated South. And so when I'm walking through Jerusalem and you see, and they say, these are the Muslim quarters, this is where the Muslims are allowed to live, that doesn't feel like a bastion of freedom to me. So I guess.
Oh, I don't think it's where they're allowed to live in Jerusalem. I think it's that there's an Armenian quarter. It's not saying the Armenians can only live here. It's that there are communities, just like there's a Jewish community in Jersey here, and there's a Muslim community in here. I don't think, to my understanding, it's not restrictions within Israel proper of where Israeli.
I think it is where they have. I mean, at least that's what the rabbi who was taking me around. He said these are the Muslim quarters, so this is where the Muslims
live, but he didn't say anything about legally saying they cannot live in other places within Israel proper. I mean, there's Israeli Arab citizens that have full rights. Israeli Arabs.
I'm only talking about Jerusalem, so I haven't been to Tel Aviv or anything like that. I'm just talking about particularly.
Jerusalem itself as a city has a division in it where the Green Line divides, and there's East Jerusalem. That's maybe what he was talking about, not the Muslim quarter, but East Jerusalem. There's disputed territory within the West Bank and East Jerusalem that divides, and therefore they're under Palestinian authority or even other jurisdiction. But that's a different conversation as far as what those are. But Arabs within Israel, if you go to Israel, people would be surprised to see on every street sign Hebrew, English, and Arabic. You see a multicultural city. So I'm keep going a little bit because I'm curious in your experience in Jerusalem.
Yeah, no, and maybe I'm misunderstanding it, but I think it's worth talking because my understanding from the rabbi was that this is where the Muslims have to live in Jerusalem, and it looks very different from where the Jewish people were living, and that again, that could not be any fault of any person other than this is how they take care of their stuff, and this is the way that we take care of their stuff. But it was noticeably a lot dirtier, it was noticeably a lot darker, and it just made me feel as a Black American and knowing my own history that this is not this isn't freedom to me. Like if you can't just decide like I want to live on that street or I want to live on this street, but maybe I'm wrong and it wasn't. Right. They were just all choosing to live there.
It might have been a misunderstanding. Imagine if you went into an inner city in the United States and somebody told you this is a predominantly Black neighborhood and you said it looked more run down. Would you say that America is systemically racist because
if I
of
was
these
giving
cities?
a tour of it, I wouldn't say this is the Black quarters. Probably.
Or this is a Black neighborhood, but maybe somebody in the group might misunderstand that.
Yeah, maybe I did. Yeah, I was wanting to ask you about that.
So, as you just saw in that video, Candace believes Israel is segregating between Muslims and Jews. And like I said, I can personally attest this is false. I was there not too long ago. I was there, in 2023? Were there Jewish neighborhoods? Yes, obviously. Were there Muslim neighborhoods? Yes. But, I mean, that's true here in the U.S., and that doesn't mean that there's segregation, right? We have Black neighborhoods, or predominantly Black neighborhoods. We have predominantly Hispanic neighborhoods. We have neighborhoods of different ethnic backgrounds. You've got neighborhoods that are Chinese, go up to Canal Street in New York City, right? That's just how people have chosen to gather in their own communities, but that doesn't make it illegal if someone of a different ethnic background were to live there, right? So it's the same thing in Israel. Now, is it true that there's an obvious difference between the Muslim side of Israel and the Jewish side of Israel? When you cross on over, and that's true, but that's on them, right? Once you cross over to Gaza, right? There is a difference. Like we were there, we went to Jericho and Bethlehem and a couple of other spots, and yeah, there's a noticeable difference, right? But when you look at, again, that area, that's being governed by a different completely, why does that fall on Israel, right? That should fall on the governing body there in that area, which would be Hamas, right? And I've said it before, they're cosplaying as a government, right? They're really a terrorist group, But I mean, we have ghettos here as well, right? I mean, I grew up in one, right? And so whose fault is that? Is that fault of the evil white man at this day and age? I don't think so. Everybody has the ability to become something. And maybe you can make that argument, 100 years ago, and you'd be right. But at this current time, no. The reality is that no matter what country you go to, poverty plays an important part on whether or not a neighborhood is kept clean by the people living in it. My father, though growing up in a very poor neighborhood in Peru always taught me the value of keeping the area clean, not littering, etc. Right? Now he's the exception, because when you go to, the poorest areas again of any country, you're going to find some areas that are not so nice. Here's the interesting thing. It costs nothing to throw garbage away in a garbage can, yet people prefer to throw it in the street. Again, in these, that just happens more frequently in these areas. I grew up seeing it with my own two eyes, again, based on the city that I was born and raised in. And there's litter everywhere. That's just the way it is when you grow up in poor areas. So Candace accusing Israel of segregation is false because we saw both Muslims and Jews in Jerusalem. As a matter of fact, when you get to the old city, we were there on a Sunday. The Jews, they hold dear to the Sabbath. And so all the Jewish-owned stores were closed. There weren't that many. The rest of them, and this is again inside the old city, right along the avenue where supposedly Jesus, walked carrying the cross. The vast majority of those stores were Muslim-owned. They were not Jewish. Now, what's interesting, as we were coming back from the whole, from the old city, we're heading back to the hotel after we, did our shopping. I was explaining to my sister-in-law, Lily. Hi, Lily. I know you're watching. The issues between Muslims and Jews, and the history behind all this hatred and aggression, and how it's really focused on Jews, specifically from the Muslim standpoint. As we were turning the corner, right, to go back to the hotel, there were 11 young Muslim boys, roughly between the ages of 12 to 15, and they were antagonizing two very, very skinny and very frail-looking Jewish boys who were roughly about, I would say, 10 to 12 years old, around that area. The Muslim boys were bigger and more athletic, as they were they had these soccer team uniforms on. And they were getting ready to pounce on these two Jewish boys. As they started to approach the two Jewish boys kept walking away. I got in the middle. I literally got into the street to impede the progress. Eventually, my brother-in-law joined in. My brother-in-law is much bigger than I am. And so we were thankfully able to intervene. But hadn't we not been there, those two Jewish boys more than likely would have gotten pummeled by these Muslim boys, right? My sister-in-law looked at me and said, wow, we were literally just talking about this, and here I am seeing what you described to me with my own two eyes. And I said, that's how it is. History is playing out right before your eyes. The history of hatred of these two groups is playing here. And when you look at how there's only one Jewish country and there's multiple Muslim countries, and they all have the same view towards Israel, I told you it's playing out right before your eyes. So when it comes to Candace Owens, there are times where her hits towards Israel and Jews are not so direct. And then there are other times where it is direct. It's very, very interesting progression. I think the not so direct hits probably are early on when she's making this transition. And then the ones that are more direct are obviously after the fallout with Ben. And then, I don't think there's holding back. But let's just take a look at some of the examples that we have here.
The entire world into their satanic faith. And it, like I said, it is my belief that this is a synagogue of Satan. Like you mentioned, it is biblical. It mentions this, people who are pretending to be Jews, but are in fact people that worship Satan. And it seems like a very small, incredibly powerful group of elites. And I can trace this through to Australia, to Switzerland, to France, to America, to Canada, and it explains why it is the circumstance that all of these world leaders that we have, even President Zelensky, all seem to be homosexual.
Now, in this video, she's referring to an alleged worldwide gay agenda being pushed by Israelis and Jews. Notice how she uses the words people who are pretending to be Jews. Now, I take this to mean these are people who call themselves Jewish but don't really act like Jews, because real Jewish people wouldn't do or promote such things as it's expressed in the Old Testament. Now, if I'm interpreting this correctly, she is right in regards to that, real Jews wouldn't do that. The main issue in her statement, though, seems to be from using the phrase Synagogue of Satan. Synagogues are specifically Jewish places of worship, and this statement, based on what I've been able to see, has historically been used as an anti-Semitic insult. Is Candace Owens using it in that manner? I don't know. But in this case, this could be seen as an indirect. Why do I say that? It's indirect because if it is being done on purpose, right? I can't really tell, because what she's doing is she's using a biblical verse from the book of Revelation where Jesus himself is saying these people are liars, and he's talking about Jews, again, Jews that pretend to be Jews, liars as they are Jews, but they really aren't. So again, what's the context here is that these are people that are calling themselves Jews, but they're doing very anti-Jewish things, right? And so because they're doing these anti-Jewish things, Jesus calls them out. So again, I can't say that this phrase at this juncture is 100% anti-Semitic, nor can I take the posture that she's 100% anti-Semitic. So let's dig a little bit further and see what else we can look at. There was a tweet from Candace Owens, and she was accused of calling Jews children of Satan. Don't know the context here, but based on this tweet, is that what she's really saying? Or is she calling Jews that lie children of Satan? Again, this goes back to these are people that call themselves Jews but aren't acting like Jews, as we know that lying is prohibited and forbidden based on, the commandments. Right? Now, what's interesting here is that Jesus uses this same phrase, and she's quoting scripture here, as you can see. She's quoting, she's quoting John 8:44. But Jesus is calling the Pharisees children of Satan. Why? Because they're lying. They're deceivers. Right? They're not following what they're supposed to be following. They're not following what they're preaching. That's for sure, teaching. Right? Now, the interesting part is the first part where she's identifying radical Zionists. So I need to know, in order for me to make an accurate conclusion, who are these radical Zionists? Again, in order for me to actually agree with David Harris Jr. here and his claims that she's calling Jews children of Satan, I need to know a little bit more, and I don't have it here. So this one's a question mark for me. If she's referring to all Jews, or she sees all Jews as Zionists, then yeah, obviously. But if they're a group of people that are creating lies based on how, again, according to her, they're lying about her involvement with Qatar, et cetera, then she's calling out these specific members and not all. So I can't draw my conclusions so far at this juncture either, right? Now, after the events of October 7th in Israel and Israel's response to the Gaza area, most anti-Jewish and anti-Israeli commentators default to the narrative of ethnic cleansing. People like Tucker, Mark Dice, and Candace Owens will constantly call out Israel for attempting to ethnically cleanse Gaza of Palestinians, which, quite frankly, this makes no sense, since there are literally thousands of Israeli Muslims living within Israel as equal citizens. So I'm not really sure how the ethnic cleansing works when you have this same ethnicity living within your city walls, living amongst you. I just don't get it. But this is where we start to see maybe a little bit of a clearer picture in her attacks directly towards Israel. Let's take a look.
These characters are just being inserted into places to serve Israel. That makes Israel the master of the universe. And that's troubling, because this is a state that has a hexagram on their flag, okay? They're even lying about the history of the Star of David. It's a hexagram. It's a cult. You can't just wipe that away. It's not even a long time ago. There's tons of books. It's showing you that that's a hexagram. What are you pretending? It's a cultic. Yeah, you're just another array trying to wipe it. You're like, nope, that's not. That is a religious. No, it's a hexagram. Okay, we're not stupid. We're going to talk about all of that stuff. I could rant about the lies that nation has told. I mean, not even that. The Star of David used to be the flag of Morocco. Okay? Why? That's weird. It's not a Jewish date. Why? What was going on in Morocco? What's going on in Algeria and Tunisia and Morocco? Yes, it is an occult nation. There's no question about that. Everything that they are involved in is occult. And that's why we have to sort of wake the world up to this very quickly. I don't think we've been a sovereign nation since they shot JFK. And when I say they, it's like people online say, what do you mean by they? I'm talking about Israel. I don't want you guys to read in between. I'm talking about Israel. So let's stop making that a taboo subject because they've gone mask down. Everything they're doing is demonic. I want nothing to do with it. I will never support Israel into the future after what they've done to these children. The Starvation Campaign. I don't care. Please write your article. You've already written them all. I don't know what you could add about me. But I do not support Israel. And I don't think that Jewish Americans should support Israel. And I hope that they're now having those conversations. I see many of them recognizing that they have been propagandized into believing they have to support this demonic state.
Now, those were a little bit more direct videos and a little bit more direct digs towards Israel, obviously. But one thing I do want to address is the starvation camps that Candace is referring to. And this accusation that Israel is purposely starving the Palestinians. Now, I'm not there at the moment, obviously, so I can't really say yes or no to this claim. But I know, based on the history of lies from Hamas, from their supporters, and the leftist media, which hates Israel, they've been known to be liars. So in my eyes, their credibility is more in question than Israel's.
With human rights groups demanding a resolution to the war of words over who should bear responsibility for the breakdown in aid.
This is what history will remember, that while food and medicine sat in trucks miles away in warehouses, the world chose politics over people and human beings, and that children were starving while leaders debated whether they were starving or not in the first place.
After the UN claimed Israel was preventing aid crossing into Gaza, the Israeli army released this drone footage claiming to show humanitarian aid supplies on the Gaza side of the border waiting to be distributed to Palestinians.
There is no famine in Gaza. There is a famine of the truth, and Israel will not stop telling it. 87 million meals, 1.8 million tons of aid, which we facilitated, aid getting in. Hamas loots, it starves its own people, and the world looks away.
Look, I've seen videos of the claims. I've seen videos pushing back on the claims. I've seen videos calling the pushback propaganda, and I've seen videos of accusations of the propaganda by other propaganda. So again, I don't know. But again, given the past experience with these groups involved, I can't take what they say at face value. The left has been known to lie regularly, repeatedly, and we've proven that here. And forget it, I'm not going to take into consideration anything that a terrorist organization says. These anti-Israeli videos have been more frequent from Candace Owens, which is why many people have deemed her to be anti-Semitic. Now, after doing a considerable amount of digging, again, not all the things that Candace Owens is accused of is accurate, but if you're constantly going after Israel and the Jewish people, again, in a generalized manner, as the pinnacle of evil, what other conclusion can someone come to? I mean, she just recently made a video claiming that Jews are the ones responsible for black slave trade. Let's take a look.
Wake up and learn the true history of slavery, because that wasn't exactly a white men sport, okay? Jewish people were the ones that were trading us. Jewish people were in control of the slave trade. They've buried a lot of it, but it's there, and you can find it.
So as crazy as she just sounded, unfortunately, it just doesn't end there for Candace. Last year, we covered Charlie Kirks' unfortunate assassination. As we mentioned at the beginning of this video, Candace and Charlie were at one point close friends. Now, I'm not really 100% sure when and where the fallout happened between these two, but one can deduce that Candace's frequent tirades on Israel may have contributed to it. After Charlie Kirks' assassination, Candace began making some really wild claims about Charlie. Some of the claims were that he was about to turn his back on Israel and that he was leaving Christianity for Catholicism. Now, Both are very wild claims given the extensive history and joy Charlie has had when he would speak about Israel. And then additionally, I've seen lots of videos where he's having friendly debates regarding the differences between Christianity and Catholicism. Now, these claims by Candace gave her a lot of attention, both good and bad. And to Candace's credit, she did provide a private text message showing Charlie's frustration with some Jewish donors. And the text said that he was rethinking his support for Israel. From my understanding, this frustration from Charlie was because he was going to have Tucker at TPUSA event. And since Tucker was going down the anti-Semitic road, these Jewish donors told Charlie they wouldn't be donating if Tucker was going to be there, giving Charlie an ultimatum, which honestly didn't sit well with him, and he expressed it on the Megyn Kelly show.
I'm so glad you brought this up, and I would second that. Megyn, I think I have a bulletproof resume showing my defense of Israel, both on campus, on social media, to great, let's just say mockery and scorn at times, because I believe it, right? I believe in the scriptural land rights given to Israel. I believe in fulfillment of prophecy. And again, I'm not a theologian, but I'm a Christian. My life was changed in Israel. The spiritual energy is so amazing there. I want them to win. I've said that repeatedly.
Same.
And however, Megyn, you're hitting on something very potent and important. Now, let me first say, I don't want to judge an entire group, because there's been many people in the pro-Israel world that have been very sweet, very kind, very nuanced, very Charlie, you're with us. You don't have to agree all the time. However, and I will say this, the behavior by a lot, both privately and publicly, are pushing people like you and me away. Not like we're going to be pro-Hamas, not like we're going to, but we're like, honestly, the way you are treating me is so repulsive. I have text messages, Megyn, calling me an anti-Semite. I am learning biblical Hebrew and writing a book on the Shabbat. I honor the Shabbat, literally the Jewish Sabbath. I visit Israel and fight for it. And there's another article out in the Times of Israel today. I could read it on air. I was just reading before I got on. Charlie, what are you doing? What am I doing? I'm sorry. Let's just take a step back here. I'm an American citizen. Yes, I want Israel to win. Yes, I'm a Christian. But some of the mess, and you've seen how I've been treated, Megyn, by some, not all, by some.
No, it's very irritating.
It's
been so unfair.
They
were coming after you after Turning Point for, among other things, that you had Dave Smith there. Dave Smith is allowed to criticize Israel. You had both sides. The Israeli side was overrepresented.
No, you're not allowed to. It's even worse than that. Again, I just want to repeat for the 5th time. I love Israel. I want Israel to win. But my moral character is now being put into question, Megyn. Not my decisions. Not like, hey, are you doing this? Is it smart or is it dumb? But no, I am a bad person if I do this.
Sadly, this video of Charlie does seem to credit Candace's side of the story. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Criticism of Israel, Jews, the government isn't anti-Semitic. And people really need to stop doing that, because it takes away from real anti-Semitism. I also understand these Jewish donors, because I think I couldn't imagine that Charlie would ever invite or platform an anti-American speaker at one of his events. I think these conservatives seem okay with trashing Israel. And they seem to get upset at the Jewish people, like Ben Shapiro, for defending Israel. But we as conservatives are in the same boat. When you look at someone who trashes the U.S., we're really quick to defend. We're going to call that person an anti-American. We tell them to get out, right? You're a communist, you're a socialist, whatever the case may be. We take that same posture in the U.S., so you really can't blame a Jewish person, whether they're Jewish American or not, for defending their homeland, right? Which, again, is biblical. So I think we as conservatives really need to be mindful of that. We wouldn't want somebody trashing the United States. I wouldn't give someone a platform if they were coming on here constantly trashing the United States. I wouldn't give them a platform. Not, maybe I'd interview them to debate them, but not in the sense that I would give them a microphone, give them a segment, give them whatever the case may be. So I think we really need to understand that. But here's where we go back to Candace's situation. Candace has made several claims of different people being involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination. I mean, she's accused either directly or indirectly Egypt of being involved. She's talking about these planes, these Egyptian planes that were in there. I don't know. French Foreign Legion has been mentioned. The U.S. government has been mentioned in their involvement. Israel, obviously, Israel is going to be mentioned. And she's even gone far as to, again, indirectly making suggestions that there were people at TPUSA that were involved in Charlie's assassination. For the purpose of today's video, we're just going to focus on two of these claims because there's just too many. It's like she's come out with so many, it's hard to keep track of all, and so we're only going to do two. The first one that we're going to cover, and obviously by default, is going to be Israel, right? She claims Israel was involved in Charlie's assassination because, according to her, he was getting ready to turn on Israel. Let's take a look.
Prominent right-wing figures, such as Candace Owens, have spewed unfounded claims about his death and even raised questions about his funeral arrangements. Owens, who worked as a communications director for Turning Point USA between 2017 and 2019, has openly cast doubt on the notion that suspect Tyler Robinson acted alone. She's floated theories that Charlie Kirk's own organization, quote, betrayed him and that the U.S. government was involved. For weeks, Owens has also seemingly implied, though not outright alleged, that Israeli intelligence may have also had a hand in Charlie's murder.
About 48 hours before Charlie Kirk died, Charlie informed people at Turning Point, as well as Jewish donors and a rabbi, that he had no choice but to abandon the pro-Israel cause outright. Did he also express that he wanted to bring me, Candace Owens, back because he was standing up for himself? And then did he, just 48 hours later, conveniently catch a bullet to the throat before our onstage reunion?
Now, I have yet to see any solid, concrete evidence from her to even take this claim seriously. It seems like, I don't know, Candace functions on intuitions and dreams lately versus actual journalistic practices of having solid evidence. According to her, she's had dreams where Charlie's coming to her and revealing that he was assassinated from his inner circle. Let's take a listen to this.
And I had a dream. And like I said, this one was clear. I had a dream that Charlie was betrayed. I had a dream, and I feel as strongly about the dream that I had that Charlie was betrayed by people closest to him. Never ignore your subconscious. That's why I say pay attention to my dreams.
Have you ever had a dream that...
Oh, you had a dream. Charlie told you he was... Yeah, Charlie told me that he was betrayed. Charlie was sitting on the patio and he was eating hummus. He's like, this is the best hummus I've ever tasted in my life. I had a dream. It was so clear. I promise you. You can actually fact check this with Bill Trey's lady, my girl Mel.
You do.
Loving your emails, telling me about your dreams. People in Turning Point had dreams. Dreams can give you some sort of intuition, and I certainly think that mine gave me a lot of intuition. Oh, the cool kids don't pay any mind when they have a very vivid dream. And Charlie in the dream says he was betrayed. Oh, the cool kid, that's so, it's not cool. I have been having a lot of dreams.
You want
Candace Owens, and to try to paint her as a crazy person because she had a dream. And I'm sticking with the dream. But many people actually had dreams, and they email me them all the time. And I had another vivid dream. The dream was so vivid. It was like, if you've ever seen Harry Potter, they're just going on vibes in a dream on the Candace show. That's it. She had a dream, and now she's just blindly pointing the finger at everybody. Tell me who betrayed you. It wasn't until the third week after his death that finally one face came through in this dream. It came through as clear as day around the corner of the restaurant. And
you want him to do you so much you could do anything?
Sorry, that was a dream that I had.
What happened to this girl? She used to be a person who was being taken as a serious journalist, and here she is making indirect accusations, smearing her friend's legacy, attacking her friend's friends, attacking his family, based on what? Based on dreams and intuitions? I mean, this is crazy. For several months straight, Candace Owens has relentlessly gone after TPUSA and Erika Kirk. According to Candace, she's just asking questions. But her questions are insinuations based on nothing more than, again, dreams, gut feelings, premonitions. The sad part is that Erika has asked Candace to stop lying. And Candace agreed to it if Erika can tell her what she's lying about. So in essence, Candace isn't going to stop because there's no real way to prove these claims based off of these crazy dreams that she's having. Let's take a look.
But she did tell you publicly before you met.
We were told that if we said stop, they would stop. And we said stop. And I'll say it again. Please stop.
What's clear is you're not going to stop. So is she okay with you now continuing to talk about your theories, or does she still want you to stop?
Well, she didn't ask me to stop. If that's the question that you're asking, is throughout that meeting, did she say,
did publicly, obviously. So your response to that is what?
I'm telling you that then we had a conversation, and I was not asked throughout that conversation to stop. And to the contrary, I shared information that I had, and I got information from them.
Right.
That helps.
So you will carry on.
Focus.
You will carry on.
Yes.
With the theories.
Yes. Until I feel confident of who killed Charlie Kirk, I will not stop investigating this.
After months of this nonsense, and additional things, such as she believes, based on what Charlie expressed to her, that he's a time traveler.
It is an absolute fact that Charlie Kirk thought that he was a time traveler. He told me he was a time traveler repeatedly. How was he so certain that he was going to die young? How is that possible? How was he even able to describe it as this tragic event? How did he know? How was he certain, by the way, as he said in those messages, that from the moment he signed onto the dotted line to begin Turning Point USA, he knew he was going to die. He knew his death was going to be related to Turning Point USA. That's not a coincidence.
I mean, I mean, when I look at that, he's playing around, he's goofing around, he's being metaphoric, or he's being funny. I don't know, but she seems to be taking it with some type of seriousness. So after all this stuff, she was finally hit with a cease and desist from TPUSA, but then goes on to complain about the C&D after she had previously challenged them to do it. This is absolutely crazy. Let's take a look.
We could sue you. Sue me. Sue me. I want subpoena power. I want all of your messages. Please do me a favor today on the Charlie Kirk case. I've been clear. I want all of the smoke from all of you. I don't think you realize how real life this is for me. I went back and listened so hard. I was like, girl, don't care at all. Do not care at all. This Turning Point USA, a cease and desist. Is that what we're doing? Is this the chapter that we are on? We're turning the chapter here to lawfare? This is what's left? You want us to believe this is Charlie's legacy?
So she wants to get sued, and when you get sued, the first initial process is a C&D, and then she complains about it. Okay. Now, the crazy part here is that she will, she'll start to deny all of these claims when she gets proven wrong. Like the leftists, right? They start to move the goalpost, et cetera, et cetera. Let's take a look.
I certainly didn't suspect Turning Point USA would be, as I believe, involved in a cover-up. And we can talk about what the motives are of that. They could be financial motives. It doesn't necessarily mean they were involved in plotting to kill him. And I've never said that. So in theory, Cam Higbee, who was laughing off the idea of an assassination attempt, is being paid by the very organization that just had its leader assassinated in broad daylight in front of the entire world. I find that to be interesting.
In addition, remember when she said this about Bill Ackman blackmailing Charlie?
You're not going to gaslight us and tell us to shut up or call us anti-Semitic for pointing out the fact that Charlie was having a change of heart about the tactics that Israel was using in America, and that he felt when he had left that meeting that he had effectively been blackmailed.
But just 3 days later, when Bill Ackman denied it, she said,
okay, buddy, I never said you blackmailed Charlie. I asked you if this moment happened. Was definitely on the brink of changing some of his perspectives. And I can tell you factually, Charlie was praying the rosary. Charlie was going to mass. One of my last conversations with Charlie was me joking with him saying, just make the last step, speaking about Mary. And typically when those steps start taking place, you stop referring to yourself, as I did, as a Judeo-Christian.
And then later says that she has no idea where people got that idea.
Again, I have no idea who said he was converting to Catholicism. I feel like
It's like intentionally misrepresenting what was said.
She also say how she never claimed that Israel was responsible for what happened to Charlie, but constantly makes statements connecting his death to Israel.
Now, based on these examples, the internet is laughing at Candace, making her seem crazy, unhinged, and honestly, it's difficult to defend her if you're looking at things objectively.
You guys want to know what happened during my meeting with Erika, so here it goes. We met in Nashville because I didn't want to fly anywhere and have my plane shut down by Israel, so I told her to come here instead. She gets here, and first thing she does is she gives me some homemade cookies. And I'm like, bitch, I ain't eating those poisoned chocolate chip cookies. She tried to poison me. Anyway, I'm still alive after almost dying from the poisoned Israeli cookies, and we start talking. Then, you're not going to believe what happened next. The waiter asks us if we want something to drink, but he's wearing the Star of David. So I'm like, I ain't about to drink no poisons lemonade from you, you Mossad agent. So anyway, I almost die again from Israeli lemonade poisoning. And Erika is like, I'll just have some water, please, which is obviously code for, you better kill this bitch right now. Am I right? So we talk, and she tells me I'm acting crazy or whatever. So I asked her to show me pictures of her of when she was younger. And she's like, why? So I'm like, oh my God, she doesn't have any. So I just discovered she's actually a man, and I'm now talking to this man who is probably an Israeli spy sent here to kill me. So I get up, I go to the bathroom, I dig a hole under the shitter like El Chapo, and I finally made it back to tell you guys the story and get paid millions by YouTube to keep you guys stupid and against Trump and Turning Point, because I'm just a piece of shit like that. Anyway, thank you for your views, retards.
Here's what's additionally sad about, this specific issue. Supposedly, Candace Owens was a friend to Charlie Kirks. And all of these things that she has done to his legacy, his friends, and his wife don't scream friendship to me. This seems to be a scream of, maybe jealousy, envy, perhaps anger. It's clear there's some type of deep issue because she wasn't invited to Charlie's memorial service. I'm sure that stung, and perhaps that could be, an additional layer. But here's the question for Candace Owens. Candace Owens, the practicing Catholic. Is this how Christians are supposed to treat other Christians? According to Scripture, Candace and Erika are both sisters in Christ. And the Bible definitely does not describe treating one another the way that Candace has gone after Erika. If Candace really had proof or evidence of Charlie's assassination, other than the person that the feds have in custody, wouldn't the most prudent thing to do is to turn over that evidence to the authorities? As a friend to Charlie, shouldn't she be trying to help Erika, who now has to raise these kids on her own? Since Candace is such a Bible scholar, I'd like to ask her, how does Romans 12:10 align with her treatment of Erika, where we're told that we need to favor one another as Christians? In conjunction, if she has an issue with Erika, let's just say, the Bible gives us clear instructions on how to deal with issues that arise when you have a problem with another brother or sister in Christ. Matthew 18:15 through 17 bears that out. You talk to the individual. If the individual doesn't acknowledge it, you go to the elder of the church. You go to the pastor. There's a chain, right? There's an escalation manner that's clearly written out in the Bible. So is Candace doing that? I would say no. Candace went on her show and showed private text messages between her and Charlie, prior to his marriage with Erika, about the girls that he was interested or dating or something of that nature, some his outfit. I don't know. Let's take a look.
Charlie going on dates and the girl they liked and me always being the wing woman and him asking, this text message is one of my favorite text messages between me and Charlie when he was getting ready to go on a date, and he didn't date many people and he was just kind of in love with this girl, and he was asking me, should I wear this? And this is the text message. It's so sweet. He said, do I have to change this shirt? And I wrote back, yes, and throw it away if you can. Charlie, he was, okay.
Again, does this sound like something a sister in Christ would do? Does this sound like something a friend would do? Or does this sound like something an enemy would do to cause another person pain and harm? This is extremely disrespectful. For her to do something like this, knowing that it could come across, and more than likely would come across to Erika. We're talking about past relationships, and Erika is his current wife, obviously widowed, but that's the current love of his life. The others didn't make it. So what's the relevancy of this, of showing it? Highly disrespectful. Now, in addition to all the sad and disturbing things that we've been seeing about Candace, again, intentionally or not, she has dealt a massive blow to the movement that Charlie's death brought forth. The headlines dominated with, revival of church attendance, Bible reading, people profoundly committing their faith to Christ. Everything was geared around Christ as Charlie would have wanted it to, right? And then the focus got silenced by this woman's conspiracy theories, rumors, and attacks. Attacks from her towards Erika. I know if I were Charlie, I would not be happy with how this so-called friend was treating my wife and adding onto the stress and grief and suffering that she is enduring at this moment. So in conclusion, look, I can't really say why she has changed and has taken such a bad general stance towards Jewish people, towards Israel. If her issue is with, like some specific individual, it should be towards that individual, and she should refrain from generalizing. But if any time there's some type of an issue and your default or your instinct is to blame Israel, again, as a default, I think her Anti-Semite of the Year award is accurately awarded. Similar to Tucker, every dig towards Israel only adds onto the propaganda and further emboldens their enemies and our enemies. Israel is not the core of evil, and when someone becomes fixated on them, it makes it very difficult to take their words with any type of seriousness.
It is very tempting to engage in, let's just say, deep internet theories that quite honestly are rooted in lunacy.
Sigmund Freud was a Kabbalist. They are trying to use psychology to make their religion the religion of the world.
And we see this with the Jew hatred, where people think that they're onto something, but in reality, they're not.
The nation of Israel may have been established by some Frankists.
This particular affliction blames the Jews for everything.
Drugs, prostitution, sex pornography. We Jews love pornography.
You're going out of your way to try to create this big web of connections. It's the Jews, and it's the Jews, and it's the Jews.
Who is in control of the White House? And Nick Fuentes wrote a one-word response. Jews.
You want to talk about low IQ, blaming an entire group for all of your problems.
These 6 individuals that I am showing you were the most murderous. Of those individuals, the majority of them were Jews.
Anyone with a decent moral compass should reject the scapegoating of Jews.
Jewish people were the ones that were trading us. Jewish people were in control of the slave trade.
Your obsession with this group of people is so unhealthy.
Where did the idea of a concentration camp come from? Who created those gulag systems? The majority of them were Jewish men.
The Synagogue of Satan. The Synagogue of Satan.
This is a synagogue of Satan, powerful group of elites.
The Israeli government does not do everything right, but they're not to blame for all of the world's ills either.
It was just convenient for Israel that JFK got shot. It was convenient for Israel, by the way, when the towers went down.
Israel did 9/11 is a rather anti-Semitic thing to say.
The Israelis that were working at the World Trade Center who were forewarned of the attack.
Anti-Semitism is literally a brain rot that stops your ability to think independently.
Jewish people. Jewish men, they are Jewish. Jews. 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 Jews.
And instead of pointing at a small group of people and engaging in this brain rot, become a better person. You'll be a happier and healthier, more joyful and productive person because of it.
Look, in one section, of that video that we just finished watching, she states that, or she thinks that Frankis may have founded Israel. I'm assuming she's talking about the establishment during modern times. But I have a news flash for Candace. God established the nation of Israel. Perhaps less time on the conspiracy theory internet and more time in the Old Testament scriptures would help Candace comprehend that. I mean, you don't even have to start from the beginning. You could take it from Jacob, when he's renamed Israel. I mean, I would recommend doing the whole thing, but you could really see right there, starting from Jacob, Israel was named Israel. Now, here's one startling piece of video that I want to close with. I think that when you have your political rivals defending you in order to go against Israel, because obviously they hate Israel, I think that should be a huge red flag. But unfortunately, emotions are extremely powerful, and they can cause people to support illogical things. Let's check this last one out.
Tucker Carlson wants to call Black Americans murdering savages, but he knows he can't do that. So he's like, that's what we pay Candace for. No, I'm not going to denounce Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens. Yeah, I said it, Candace. You're the worst of the worst. You're a sellout. No, we don't have to denounce her at all, okay? You're a scum of the earth. None of that money is worth it. None of it is worth it.
There is a concerted effort to make Candace Owens look like she's absolutely insane, but it looks like Candace Owens was onto something. Candace Owens is not someone that anyone takes seriously, including people on the right. The people accusing her of being crazy are the real insane people. Candace Owens, who once argued that the problem with Hitler was his love for globalization and not the fact that he slaughtered 6 million Jewish people.
Don't come at me about denouncing Candace Owens until you denounce Jared Kushner. People like Candace Owens lead pathetic lives because they're paid to sell their own identity out. None of the things that she says is true. I guess they get paid handsomely. I don't know how they sleep at night.
I guess when it's about the Jews, you know, I guess it's okay to just throw all your values out. Got it. Cool.
You know, it's really unfortunate to see these people go down this road, but that's where they're at. I mean, just recently, there's a video of Candace Owens denying the protests that are happening over there in Iran. And I know, based on my wife's friend, who's Iranian, that is going on over there. So it's funny how she'll deny certain things in one direction, just like how Tucker was defending or seemingly defending and making or downplaying Islam and Sharia law. Here we've got Candace Owens doing something very similar, dismissing actual events and calling it fake or making it seem like it's fake when it comes to Iran. But anything and everything that points back to Israel is absolutely on point from her perspective. And it's just a reality. Whether it's JFK, whether it's 9/11, whatever the case may be. If it has to do with Israel, she's all over it. And again, if that's your default, you got a problem, right? The evidence, the factual, concrete evidence should make the determination, not your bias, not your hatred, not your emotions, not your speculation, not your conspiracy, especially if you're going to be calling yourself a journalist. So guys, that's it for my video today. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you guys on the next one. Take care. God bless you guys. God bless America. Bye-bye.